Welcome back to my channel. Today we will learn about the issue that has shaken the community of ABC General Hospital to its core, the sudden death of Michael after what was supposed to be a routine and promising treatment in Germany. The story begins shortly after Michael sustained critical burn injuries in a devastating explosion at Sonny's home. In the aftermath, it became apparent that local hospitals, despite their best efforts, lacked certain advanced capabilities needed to ensure Michael's full recovery. Carly, fraught with worry, desperately sought an alternative. That was when Brennan stepped in. He had connections overseas and insisted there was a specialized clinic in Germany with state-of-the-art facilities and a renowned medical team that had reportedly saved lives even in the direst of circumstances. Given Michael's precarious condition, Carly and Brennan, together with the American medical professionals involved in Michael's initial treatment, concluded that transferring him to Germany as soon as possible offered the best and perhaps only hope of restoring him to health. Carly's reservations were tempered by her trust in Brennan, who vouched for the clinic's reputation and assured her that Michael would receive top-notch care. Despite any lingering fears, Carly believed there was no time to spare, so she signed the necessary paperwork. The day of Michael's transfer was a whirlwind of emotion, with paramedics escorting him onto a medically equipped private jet financed and arranged by Brennan. Carly felt a pang of grief watching her son embark on this daunting journey alone. She badly wanted to accompany him, but circumstances demanded that she remain in Port Charles briefly to finalize logistics. The plan was for her to rejoin him in Germany once everything was settled. Initially, updates from the German clinic seemed promising. The specialized burn unit reported that Michael had arrived safely, stabilized, and was responding well to the therapies they had initiated. Carly's heart felt lighter each time she received optimistic news. Hearing that Michael's pain was under better control, that his graft sites were healing, that experts in the clinic were dedicated to his case, these small triumphs buoyed her spirits and made her believe that the darkest days might be over. She confided her relief to Brennan, expressing gratitude for his role in guiding Michael to such a capable team of doctors. Everyone who loved Michael, Sonny, Jason, Willow, Jocelyn, and other family friends rallied behind this glimmer of hope. Even the staff at General Hospital in Port Charles, who had previously treated Michael, felt relief that he might recover more fully than if he had stayed. But that fragile sense of optimism was shattered mere weeks later when Carly received a phone call from the clinic in Germany. The voice on the other end, speaking in halting English, informed her that Michael's condition had taken a drastic turn. He had developed what they referred to as a severe adverse reaction to his treatment regimen. The German medical team had tried every possible intervention but ultimately lost him. He was declared deceased, and they requested that Carly contact them immediately about arrangements. The weight of that revelation almost brought Carly to her knees. In the blink of an eye, everything she believed was improving now lay in ruins. She struggled to comprehend how her son, reportedly on the mend, had died so suddenly. For a moment, Carly was so distraught that she could barely speak. Memories of Michael's childhood, his smile, his laughter, and the myriad times she had sacrificed for him coursed through her mind. She gripped the phone, trying to steady herself, tears blurring her vision until all she could see was darkness. Disbelief, heartbreak, and panic collided in her chest. She had not even had the chance to see Michael in Germany yet. She had remained behind to handle some last-minute affairs, confident there was time. Now, the phone line was filled with condolences in a detached, clinical tone that felt utterly surreal. Carly's face paled, and her heart pounded a frantic rhythm. When the call ended, Carly was left trembling. She stumbled into Brennan's presence, hardly able to form the words. Between sobs, she repeated that Michael was dead, that the clinic had just informed her. Brennan, who had long advocated for sending Michael to Germany, was dumbfounded. He pressed Carly for details. How could this have happened? Why had the staff not indicated any trouble before? Had there been an unexpected complication? But Carly only shook her head and wept uncontrollably. No explanation, no matter how rational, could soothe the anguish she felt. Brennan, despite his own shock, swiftly took charge of the logistics. He arranged for his private jet to stand by, determined to transport Carly to Germany immediately so that she could see her son. Though there was talk of requesting a thorough investigation, neither had the capacity for calm deliberation at that moment. Carly, still in disbelief, held on to the faint hope that some misunderstanding had occurred. Perhaps the clinic had confused Michael's chart with another patient's. Perhaps the call was in error. Even if it were naive, Carly clung to that glimmer because the alternative was too devastating to contemplate. The flight to Germany seemed interminable. Carly alternated between long stretches of stunned silence and fits of sobbing. Brennan stayed beside her, offering tissues, murmuring empty but well-meaning reassurances that everything would be okay, that they would find answers. He had always prided himself on being the strong one, the voice of reason and reassurance, but even he could not hide his own sense of guilt and confusion. After all, he had urged Carly to send Michael to this clinic. He had believed wholeheartedly in its reputation. Now that Michael was gone, a terrible knot of remorse coiled in his chest. The moment they landed, Carly and Brennan rushed to the medical facility, forcing themselves to move forward, step by step, even as dread trailed close behind. When they arrived at the clinic, the staff wore somber expressions. Some recognized Carly from the photographs pinned to Michael's room, while others had spoken to her by phone. The lead doctor explained, in carefully measured words, that Michael had initially shown promising signs of recovery. However, at some point, he developed an unexpected immune response to a powerful medication used to halt infection in his burn sites. The reaction quickly escalated to multiple organ stress. Despite every intervention the team attempted, dialysis, respiratory support, specialized intravenous treatments, his condition deteriorated with shocking speed. They insisted that they had done everything humanly possible, but ultimately, Michael succumbed to complications. Carly listened to these words, feeling numb and disbelieving. Their calm explanations collided with the agony in her heart. She asked again and again, through trembling lips, whether Michael had been in pain, whether he had asked for her, whether there was any chance that they had made a mistake. Each time, the doctors responded with polite, measured sorrow, yet their words offered no comfort. Carly's mind churned with regret. If only she had traveled to Germany sooner, if only she had insisted on personally overseeing his care, if only they had kept him in Port Charles for a bit longer. But the doctors reminded her that the burn injuries were severe and that their specialized expertise had given Michael the best possible chance. Ultimately, no one could have foreseen such an adverse drug reaction. Finally, they led Carly and Brennan to the morgue. Standing in front of the cold metal drawer, Carly felt her knees threaten to buckle. A staff member pulled it open, revealing the form of her son, covered partially by a white sheet. His face was pale, his body still. In that moment, any desperate hope that the doctors were mistaken evaporated. Carly bent over him, tears pouring down her cheeks, letting out a sound that was as much a wail as a sob. She stroked his hair, feeling the unnerving cold of his forehead, and whispered that she was sorry she hadn't been there for him, that she would never forget him, that she loved him more than life itself. All the heartbreak that had been building since the phone call now erupted. Brennan placed a supportive hand on Carly's shoulder, his own eyes moist, but neither words nor gestures could pierce the enormity of Carly's grief. Arrangements needed to be made to bring Michael home. While Carly was in no emotional state to handle that, Brennan stepped up once again, forging contacts with local authorities and funeral transport services. The legalities in paperwork, though necessary, felt cold and pragmatic in the face of such loss. Carly barely registered the flurry of forms and official stamps. She stood by Michael's side, wishing she could somehow undo the last few weeks, wanting to shield her son from a fate that felt incomprehensible. When at last they boarded Brennan's jet with Michael's coffin carefully secured, Carly felt a nauseating sense of déjà vu. Only a few weeks ago, she had watched him depart for Germany in a medical plane, hoping he would return healthy. Now, he was returning, but in the darkest, most final way possible. The entire flight back to Los Angeles was steeped in a suffocating sorrow. No one spoke unless absolutely necessary. Carly stared out the window, tears drying on her cheeks, wishing for time to reverse. Brennan intermittently checked on her, but eventually recognized that words would only ring hollow. Back in LA, the funeral preparations began. The suddenness of Michael's death left many in Port Charles stunned and devastated. People who had spoken to Michael mere weeks earlier couldn't believe he was gone. Carly found herself in a haze, barely functioning. She permitted others to step in, friends, family, even funeral planners, making decisions about casket options, service details, and flower arrangements. All the typical tasks associated with memorial ceremonies felt like a cruel joke, as if at any moment Michael would appear, alive, well, and outraged at the mistake. But that moment never came. On the day of the funeral, a somber hush fell over the gathering. Loved ones, acquaintances, and even strangers who had known the Corinthos name all converged. Michael's photograph took center stage at the front of the room, wreathed in flowers. Carly, dressed in black, sat in the front row, flanked by Brennan and other family members. Her face was lined with sorrow, her eyes red from tears. She held a crumpled tissue in one hand, though no more tears seemed to flow. She felt numb, as if the wellspring of her grief had run dry for now. One by one, people approached the casket to pay their respects. Some touched the smooth surface, others placed tokens of memory, a photograph, a flower, or a letter. Eulogies were offered, each story painting a portrait of who Michael had been: a loving son, a devoted father to Wiley, a loyal friend, and a bright presence in countless lives. Everyone kept returning to how abrupt this all seemed. One moment, Michael was a battered but hopeful burned patient with a chance at recovery; the next, he was lost forever. Among the mourners, Sonny's grief showed in the deep lines on his face. He embraced Carly, whispered words of comfort, and tried to hold his composure, though tears glistened in his eyes. Jason, stoic as ever, struggled to maintain a facade of calm. He stood quietly nearby, doing his best to support Carly in what ways he could. There was, however, an unmistakable undercurrent of suspicion in Sonny's and Jason's gazes. Beyond their sadness, they wore expressions that signaled a relentless determination. It wasn't long before word spread. Sonny didn't believe the official explanation from the German clinic. The doctor's story, that Michael died from an extreme reaction to medication, seemed too convenient, too vague, leaving key questions unanswered. He had connections in Europe, ways to glean intel beyond what the clinic had provided. Perhaps he wasn't ready to accept the random cruelty of fate, perhaps there was more to it. Jason shared Sonny's skepticism. Together, they resolved to initiate an investigation, discreet yet thorough. They aimed to uncover any anomalies in the clinic's procedures, any suspicious details about Michael's medication regimen, or any potential sabotage. Sonny's network of associates, both in the US and abroad, was significant. Quiet inquiries were made. Hospital staff in Germany were carefully approached. The pharmacy records at the clinic were scrutinized. Meanwhile, back in Port Charles, Jason employed local resources to piece together any overlooked fragments of the puzzle. Could the medication Michael was given have been tampered with? Were there unscrupulous individuals who might benefit from Michael's death, financially or strategically? The explosion that initially caused Michael's burns had its own suspicious elements. Could it be that someone was determined to finish the job they started, so to speak, and ensure Michael did not survive? Carly, at first, was too overwhelmed by grief to engage with these suspicions. But as the haze began to lift, she found herself drawn to the same questions. She recalled how abruptly she was informed of Michael's death, how no sense of alarm had preceded it, and how the clinic's explanation seemed broad and insufficient. The notion that Michael might have been murdered or subjected to negligence was horrifying, but the more she thought about it, the less she believed the official narrative. After all, specialized clinics train intensively to manage advanced complications, especially for severe burn patients. How could they lose him that quickly without any prior signs of distress? In the days following the funeral, Sonny and Jason grew more determined. They visited Carly with what little they had learned. Certain documents from the German clinic indicated medication logs that were incomplete. The clinic's official statements about times and doses did not align seamlessly with the internal charts. There were also inconsistencies regarding Michael's final hours. One nurse confided, under the condition of anonymity, that Michael had been improving as recently as a day before his death, which clashed with the doctor's tale of a rapid decline. All these clues propelled Sonny's conviction that something nefarious had occurred. Carly, while still reeling, began to feel anger replacing some of her despair. If indeed Michael's death was no accident, she wanted justice. She wanted answers, retribution, and the truth laid bare. Brennan, too, found himself under scrutiny not from Sonny directly, but from those who knew how passionately he had recommended the German facility. Was Brennan truly innocent in the matter, or was there more to his involvement? Some whispered, out of Carly's earshot, that perhaps Brennan had an ulterior motive in sending Michael away, or that he had ties to individuals who might want Michael out of the picture. Brennan vigorously denied such implications. He recounted, over and over, how he had believed wholeheartedly in the clinic's stellar reputation and had never for a moment doubted their integrity. Visibly distraught by Michael's demise and the possibility of foul play, Brennan vowed he would join Sonny and Jason in uncovering the truth. As the days turned into weeks, the tragedy left a deep scar on the community in Port Charles. People went about their daily lives, but the sense of loss lingered. Carly found it especially hard to be in places that reminded her of Michael's presence, from the Courtemain mansion, where he once spent time, to her own living room, where Michael's laughter used to ring out. She also wrestled with how to break this news to Wiley in a gentle, age-appropriate manner, determined to preserve the child's memory of his father as a caring figure rather than overshadow it with bitterness and suspicion. Even so, there were glimmers of resolve in Carly's eyes as she assisted Sonny and Jason in the investigation. She realized that curling up in despair served no purpose. She wanted to believe that Michael's death, if preventable, could be avenged. She wanted to ensure that no other family experienced the same heartbreak. By rallying with Sonny and Jason, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, though the hole in her heart remained. Each step in the inquiry highlighted a new puzzle piece: questionable emails from the clinic, unusual phone records, anomalies in billing statements. The more they looked, the more they sensed a cover-up, or at least a web of secrecy that the clinic's administrators were keen to protect. Sonny's approach was direct, shaped by years of operating under the radar. He contacted allies abroad, some of whom owed him favors, to gather intelligence about the clinic's investors and any shady dealings in its past. Jason, methodical and calm, compiled the facts into a coherent timeline of Michael's stay in Germany. He tallied the medication lists, cross-checked them with standard burn protocols, and identified places where data was missing or contradictory. All of this information, they hoped, would eventually coalesce into an irrefutable proof. Carly, seeing these efforts, experienced a swirl of hope and apprehension. She braced herself for the possibility that what they discovered might be even darker than they feared. If some malevolent force had orchestrated Michael's demise, either by tampering with medication or orchestrating some inside sabotage, they might not rest until they had silenced potential witnesses or threatened those seeking the truth. Meanwhile, the official cause of death listed on Michael's death certificate was drug-induced anaphylactic shock, or an equivalent medical phrase explaining an extreme allergic or immune reaction. The coroner's final statement from Germany described the event as a tragic, unforeseeable reaction. However, with every day that passed, the swirling suspicions around Port Charles grew stronger. Why were certain staff members at the clinic refusing to comment? Why had the logs not been updated promptly? Why had no one informed Carly earlier if Michael's condition was deteriorating so severely? At Michael's gravesite, Carly often visited, kneeling by the fresh earth, whispering to her son about how much she missed him. She vowed that she would never rest until the shadowy circumstances behind his death were brought to light, if indeed there was more to it than the official story. She told him that Sunny and Jason were on the case, and that they had never let him down before. Some nights, she barely slept, awake in bed replaying the phone call from Germany, the flight there, the icy stillness of Michael's body in the morgue. She yearned for closure, for some final knowledge that might let her find a semblance of peace. Outside of Carly's private torment, Sunny and Jason's unwavering determination set them on a collision course with powerful adversaries who might be responsible for what happened in Germany. Rumors began circulating in Port Charles that certain individuals in Europe had connections to the same criminal networks that once tried to bring down Sunny's organization. Whispers suggested that those powerful figures may have decided to strike at Sunny through Michael, though the motive remained unclear. Jason paid close attention to these rumors, cross-referencing them with any new intel from his contacts. Each lead, each hint, advanced the possibility that Michael's sudden death was no accident. Even as the investigation simmered, official channels didn't lend much support. Under the law, the German clinic's explanation was accepted at face value unless concrete evidence to the contrary emerged. The complexities of international health regulations and privacy laws made it challenging for Sunny and Jason to obtain all the records they wanted. Carly believed that only unwavering persistence or an insider's confession would crack the facade. Meanwhile, the memory of Michael's funeral still hovered in everyone's minds, the black-clad mourners, the heartfelt eulogies, the funeral bells that resonated like an elegy for a future Michael would never have. For now, the matter stands as a painful junction. Carly is coming to grips with the unthinkable reality that her son is gone, even as a swirl of suspicion suggests a deeper conspiracy. Brennan remains by her side, guilt-ridden yet resolute, supporting her emotionally and financially as they push forward. Sunny and Jason press on behind the scenes, determined to unravel the truth behind every conflicting medical record and uncertain timeline. They speak in hushed tones of bringing justice to Michael's memory, refusing to let him become just another casualty in a world of secret deals and hidden agendas. Although the official narrative is that Michael died from a catastrophic medical reaction, the hearts of those who loved him cry out for deeper answers. The abruptness, the lack of thorough documentation, and the clinic's measured evasiveness all suggest that more lurks beneath the surface. In the days and weeks to come, the tension will mount, and the unstoppable drive of Sunny and Jason will likely clash with individuals who have gone to great lengths to bury the truth. Each step brings the possibility of an explosive confrontation, one that might reveal if Michael was truly a victim of random misfortune or something far darker. And so, dear viewers, we stand at a turning point in the saga of ABC General Hospital. Michael's tragic and unexpected death has shaken the foundations of Port Charles, spurring heartbreak, questions, and a thirst for answers. Carly, inconsolable in her loss, finds a single thread of purpose in the knowledge that Sunny and Jason vow to discover whether Michael's demise was fated or orchestrated. Brennan struggles with remorse, wondering whether he inadvertently led Michael into a deadly trap. And behind it all, shadows move, faceless figures who may have orchestrated events leading to Michael's final breath in that distant German clinic. The heartbreak is profound, the questions endless, and the tension rising as we wait for revelations that will inevitably shape the future for everyone who called Michael a friend, a father, a son, and a beloved presence in their lives. That concludes our in-depth look into this heartbreaking storyline. Even though the official version emphasizes an untimely reaction to medication, Sunny and Jason's relentless pursuit of the truth hints that we have only scratched the surface. For now, we can only stand by and watch as these characters grapple with grief, suspicion, and the possibility of foul play, hoping that someday justice will prevail for Michael's memory. Stay tuned for more updates on ABC General Hospital, and thank you for joining me on this channel as we learn about the issue that has left everyone reeling. Let us remember Michael and honor the love he brought into so many lives, even as we brace ourselves for the potential firestorm once the deeper truth emerges.